somewhat good of me to not bring these books because, you know, apparently we got to advertise somehow, you know.
Okay.
And who knows? Maybe someone today who petting you and they literally came for one of my books. Like, you just never know. Yeah. Can we? That's good. Okay. So hi guys. Are you guys good?
Yeah.
Okay. It's really an honor. I think.
So I think 30 minutes. Is 30 minutes enough, guys?
Yeah, it's enough.
Plus Q&A.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Two things will shy.
Yeah.
30 minutes. Hey, I've got time.
Yeah.
So yeah, look, the subject of my talk is called breaking away from low self-esteem. And so, standing before you, I think I've had quite the privilege and I've had quite the different experiences in my life that I think have taken me from a certain place and they've led me to a certain place. So I'm going to give you guys an example of at least what I used to do, let's say back in the day before having these books. So what I will do is that you guys I'm going to say certain things and then you guys are going to repeat those things after me. Sounds good, yeah? So when I say words, you guys say them back and then pretty much we'll see how far we can go with that, yeah? So say, I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Okay, we're going to get there. Say, I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
I am powerful.
Say, I am created.
I am created
To create.
to create.
I am created.
I am created
To create.
to create.
I am designed.
I am designed
To deliver.
to deliver.
Engineered. To prosper.
To prosper.
Destined. For success.
For success.
In my hands.
In my hands,
I carry.
I carry
My dreams.
my dreams.
This body.
This body
Is a temple.
Is a temple
For my life.
for my life.
With these eyes.
With these eyes,
What you see.
what you see
Is not what.
is not what
You will see.
you will see
In the next.
in the next
5 years.
5 years.
I am young.
I am young,
I am black.
I am black,
And I am powerful.
and I am powerful.
Do you guys believe that?
Yes, sir.
For real?
Amen.
Yes, sir.
Alright, then I think we should be good. So I used to say these things a lot because a lot of my career started when I was in grade 9. So we would often have what we would call, orals in the classroom, and then they would always want to choose maybe a learner who can do a speech. So often what would happen, pretty much like today, which I shouldn't really expose, is that I'd often be just told, okay, maybe we need someone who can do a speech, who can do that. And this is the one time that I used to feel myself being confident. The one time that I used to feel like I can actually say, I know who I am, so to speak. So then I would get up on stage or the classroom or the assembly, then I'd start doing my things and learners would repeat after me. But then that would just be that, there would be nothing more to it. But what people didn't know is that as much as I was doing all those things, I was still the same kid who had to go home and face his situation. Because growing up, I grew up, I'm still pretty much there, Omamsi, a place called Mabeshani. And so I'm pretty much raised by a single mom and I've got a young sister as well. And through us growing up, I've always been wondering as to why don't we have a place called home? Like, why is it that, we had to rent from one place to the other? And I remember the events that would often hit me a lot. And for those of you guys who don't hear me for the first time, it's not every day. But it's cool because it's gonna get to a point where it actually makes sense why I have to start there. Because whatever it is that I'm wearing, it's very hard for someone to get the picture of actually the only difference between that kid and this guy was maybe a change of perspective, maybe a change of self-image, maybe there's a bit of self-belief, or maybe he's actually following his destiny. Maybe the difference isn't so much about the guy who's standing here and the guy who was then before. We all wonder, what changed then? How does that same kid who was living in that shed, didn't believe in himself, and every time when it rained, we'd always have to stay up because he has cooking the one we were staying in, that you know, because you need to make sure with the little furniture that you guys have is protected. You know, because and we don't have the ocean, guys. So that in itself is not something you don't want to wake up in that situation, right? So cool. What then happens is, in having to write the book, Young, Black and Powerful, I believe this is pretty much what Asanda might have spoken on earlier on, which was the power of affirmations. Because I had to wake up in the morning, and my sister would say a lot of times that they were convinced that being sick, like I was being crazy, you know, because they often would say, why would this guy every day, saying, you know, I am young, black and powerful, I'm created to create, I'm designed to deliver. One day I'll achieve my dreams and I'll become this person. So all of them thought, there's no way. Not that they didn't believe in me, but it just didn't make sense. Like lentwana le zvuka nayo silala nayo lana ugezele ndishini eyi-1 nathi uthi yena is going to change the world. There's absolutely no way. Not that they didn't believe in me, but because it's really hard to believe in something that is only a potential. Because you can't measure potential. It only exists within the individual's capacity for them to actually fight or to prepare themselves towards that particular potential. Because all that we are and all that you can ever be is potential. So potential is not measured. Potential has got no limitation. It's got no boundaries. It's only can be as strong or can be only utilized if the individual self believes in that potential. Fast forward, then I started to, I think it was 2015, I was also 15, so I guess if you do the numbers, you can tell how old this kid really is. Anyway, so I decided, let me compile all the speeches that I had been doing across the year, right? So I did that for my school holidays because I had to retire pretty much from soccer. Because me, I thought I was going to be the next Cristiano Ronaldo. That's pretty much what I saw. If I can walk in the one and which means if I have to take a free kick, there's absolutely no way. With these legs, there's no way. Right, so I've been accepted to a team. I won't even mention its name for many, many reasons that are also personal. So now the only thing left is that my mom has to sign the contract that would then take me to the academy, pretty much to the school. But then my mom says, look, if you're going to choose soccer, then it means you and I are just not in the same page. And so what would happen when I didn't play soccer is that almost every week my mom had to buy me a new pair of shoes. Because I was playing street soccer, for those of you guys know, and there's nothing better than street soccer, dustbin, and all these other things. And so my mom and I really got into kind of a fight, you know, because we didn't agree with one another. Because now you're taking the one thing that I think is going to take me out of this situation and take all of us out of this situation. So now that I can play soccer, so these holidays, I'm writing down the speeches. So the next year, the next term comes, it's 2016. There's no way I can write a book. I can write speeches, but I can never write a book. So he then says, okay, no, take these things and then find a laptop and then try to type these things. I had never used the laptop before. Probably the only technological thing I had ever used is PlayStation 2. I'm sure how much did I have PlayStation 2? That's the closest thing I could say I've ever used anything technological at that time of my life. I was using Nokia at the time and stuff like that. So in that process, then I start typing now, Word document, the first time I use it. Sometimes you type your work and then the work gets deleted and all these other things, right? So anyway, I managed to type the book. So what I had to do, I had to borrow laptops and do all of that. Until the end of 2016, pretty much, then the decision had to come, okay, so what are we gonna call the book now? We need a title for the book. And then the idea was that I was gonna launch the book when I was doing my trip. I think that was 2017. So great stuff. So now I need to find a title. So the genesis of Young, Black and Powerful, and the subtitle says, be motivated and stay inspired. This book is not a motivational book in a sense that I was trying to motivate people, but it's actually a book where I had to expose a lot of the things that made me vulnerable. I had to speak about certain things that I was not really happy about. because part of gaining your identity and part of self-awareness requires that we have to go to the parts of ourselves that we would rather keep in the closet, for lack of a better way. For those of you who've been to therapy, you would notice that as patients, when we go to see a therapist, the first thing that we try by all means is that we want to come across as these good people. We want to come across as people that, yeah, you know, maybe I've experienced some bad things, but we want to do by all means to make sure that we come across as good and as high functioning, so that even the therapist, because we also want them to like us, we don't really want them to feel as though, hey, nothing's always still is cut nalo muntu. But the irony about that is that actually the therapist is going to look for the patterns, attachments, and behaviors that have actually perhaps led you to this place that you are in. So in using that analogy, what we realize is that for most of us, when we say, even the title of my talk, I don't know why William even said breaking away from low self-esteem, is that sometimes we think we have to suppress everything about us that I could say we don't like, or anything about us that we don't necessarily like. And one of the things that I had to do, I had to speak on the subject of colorism, because what I had experienced, I guess, is the high-end extreme of what it means to be dark in skin complexion. Because a lot of this genesis for me, being called dark or mnyaman, it used to hit a lot of my self-esteem. Not because the joke wasn't funny, but because for me, it hit the core of my insecurities. This is the very thing that makes me feel insecure. Hence, even the opening introduction of the book kind of goes, for those of you who've been told you're too dark, you're too tall, you're too short, you're too pale, you're too white, whatever anything that you are, please bear in mind that that is only the context in which you are confined in by what I would call social oppression, because it isn't really the ideal identity that you as an individual possess and that you as an individual can aspire to in that predicament. So I had to come across with my issues of colorism, that for me to look at myself and kind of go, I'm dark in skin complexion and all these things, this was not an easy subject. And now, the reason why, as I discovered later on in my life, it even hit me so hard, was because not having had a biological father present in my life always made me to go out in the world and look for validation and recognition from other people, you know, because I'm already struggling with the identity that I could say has been given to me as a precondition of how I kind of appear on an external appearance, right? So then cool, what then happens is come across and then I say, hey man, I'm actually young, black, and powerful. And what that gave me at the time, and the reason why I had to say that a lot of times, is that, remember, affirmations is not the things that we already are, it's the things we're aspiring to. So hence you have to speak it into existence. Hence right now I don't feel the pressure of saying I am young, black, and powerful, because in that sense it's a story that I own, and it is no longer a story that is given to me, more like without even my permission, so to speak. So now, by saying I'm young, black, and powerful, I've taken away, let's say, the weapon that someone would use. Because now, if you say that, you are actually validating the thing that I actually believe in, whereas if you said it before, you would be tapping into what I would call my insecurities. So why this story? Why does it matter? Because I believe someone right here, right now, either has issues in and around body image, self-image, confidence, inferiority complex, whatever complex that you may be experiencing in your life. And I think a lot of us in this lifetime, we find ourselves having the pressure to prove ourselves. Because you and I currently live in a world where if you don't keep up with the appearances, it's very easy for people to mistake that as though maybe or you're out of fashion, or you're not trending. So hence there's this need and this desire that we always want to come up either looking like our best version of ourselves, or we want to try by all means to appear the good that we are. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But the question I'm asking is, how long are you going to compensate your true self to the idea that people have imposed on you? the most important thing that all of us are looking for in the world, we're all looking for a story. Everyone sitting here is a byproduct of a story.
Yeah.
Because when you find someone in whatever situation of their life and they will talk to you about their life, if you listen carefully, they are truly just giving you a narrative. He made an example about twins, not two twins, about twins, that one, the same father is alcoholic, the other one becomes a doctor, and the other one becomes an alcoholic pretty much. And he really validates that story by saying, but each time I already been alcoholic, why would I have to become anything other than that? Then the other one says, but actually, because my father was an alcoholic, it actually makes sense that I actually don't become the thing that he was. There's a book by Chinua Achebe where he writes about a particular character whom his father had died. And when the father had died, the young man, what he did his whole life was to try by all means to never have to discover why the father had died. Because he believed that if I can actually run away from everything that connects me to this guy, then I have better chances of not becoming the thing that he was.
Powerful.
And when the story ends, he had become the worst version of who his father was.
Yeah.
And I think what happens to us a lot of times is that we think perhaps the idea of truth is way better than the truth in itself. And that is to say, it is much better for me to just conclude that, nah, time Alivaile and he died, and then I just pick that, and then I compartmentalize it and I leave it there. That's also the idea of the truth. But it is way more harder for you to actually look at it, but why did this guy behave this way? Not that you're trying to change your past, but because our past is also a byproduct. Our future is a byproduct of our past. Why? Because what is deeply ingrained in us is a story. It's a narrative. I'll prove this. The narrative that I had for so long was that I was dark in complexion, and all of those things. And that narrative made me believe that I could never amount to anything of success. I could never become anything. And it's a narrative that I could have backed up very well because I'm coming from the township, Mpumekas, and there's all the other reasons that would make sense with It's a narrative in itself, and it's a belief in itself that if not questioned, you would not say, I'm not following my destiny or I'm not living up to that, because that is the narrative. But what happens to characters when they actually encounter a different narrative? All of a sudden, this guy can say, I am young, black, and powerful. All of a sudden, he's 17 years old. On the first day of release, he sold out his book. The next year, he then becomes an internationally recognized speaker who can travel to Asia, who can travel to Europe, he can be anywhere in Africa pretty much to speak on the subject pretty much of being young, black, and powerful. What changed? I haven't changed. The only thing that has changed is the story that I told myself.
Sure.
I had to question this story and be like, but is it true that indeed this is who I am and this is what my life is? Because fundamentally, all of us, we ask ourselves this question of, who am I? Deeply so. For those of us who love movies and series or whatever it is that we watch, and there's a great movie called The Matrix. It was actually released the same year I was born, interestingly enough. So, in The Matrix, the guy, Neo, the main character, there's this other fellow who's kind of he's found out the truth. I'm sorry for those of you who've watched the movie, if you're Borayan, but I have to make that example because the reason why when I watched The Matrix, the first time around it was a very hard movie to understand because I think it made me think, hey man, where's Allah? First of all, that's the question. So anyway, fast forward, because we've all watched it. Then we realize there's a red pill and there's a blue pill. So the blue pill is like, nee, Ntwana, kubeka with this narrative, kubeka looking for whatever it is that you're searching for. There's actually no rights, no wrong, because at the end of the day, we're looking for a story that validates our life. The red pill kind of says, now you're going to see the truth for what it is, and you're going to experience life for what it is, not as a projection of how the world is presented to you. So as we all know, Neo then takes the red pill. But what's interesting is that shortly even after that, when he was removed from the matrix, the big machine, where everyone is just part of the system and we all pretty much that we're just cogs in the machine, because hence the narrative is even like go to school, get a job, graduate, da 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 da. It's all part of the matrix. I'm sorry if these guys are gonna feel like I'm promoting them. I'm not. It's just that their movie just came to my mind and I'm using them. You know, so you have to ask yourself as well, which pill do you want to take? And the most important thing we need to understand is that there is no right, there is no wrong. Because the only thing we're looking for, which what I think the movie even says it as well, is we're all just looking for a story. Because deeply ingrained in all of us, we are looking for ways or for places where we can belong, where we can be accepted, where we can feel like actually I can connect with the other person and I am one with the other person. Hence civilization has a lot to do with making us to be more communal than when we were in the Stone Ages, where everyone had to live in their own different caves, whatever that cave was. But civilization says no, actually human beings have to be together. Hence we need these type of events. We need to be amongst other people. But a part of that I want you to question is, in your search for acceptance, in your search for belonging, are you then becoming who you are, or are you becoming who you are sort of expected to be? Because as we grow up, there's already a precondition of what a man is and what a man can aspire to. There's already a precondition for you as a woman as to this is what society expects a woman to be. The idea of what beauty is, the idea of what is true, what is not right and what not. So the question for me is, for those of you, quote, who want to break away from low self-esteem, unfortunately, it requires you to question everything. Because the thing you have to ask yourself is, now that you found the truth, remember now people are going to start realizing what but what's interesting is that you actually are the one who found the way. But because it's out of the norm, it's hard for people to understand and it's hard for people to comprehend. So what then happens is that we end up having to compromise our true self so that we can, kind of adopt to other people. Hence, Miriam Williamson, in her great poem, Our Deepest Fear, she really, my whole talk is, maybe someone could just say, let me just read that poem. Because she then says, why would you have to shrink yourself so that other people can, let's say, feel better of themselves? You are a child of God, you are given all the talents and all these other things. Why then do you have to compromise yourself so that other people can feel better? And she even says, it is our light that brings light to the world. It is not by shrinking ourselves that other people are liberated, but it's actually when we also free ourselves that others can also be free. So if we are not willing to do this, for those who are coming before us, be it that your younger sister or younger brother, whoever the case is, you have to decide what kind of a narrative am I giving these people. When you watch the Marvel movies, all these superheroes, your Iron Man, your Spider-Man, your Thor, and all these other guys, if you look at them deeply, and all they have to do, they are all questioning the narrative. Because as much as it looks like they're trying to save the universe, but if you look at it more intently, they're really trying to save themselves from the bondage of society, the bondage of imprisonment, whatever that means for them. One of my favorite characters is actually Doctor Strange. If you guys have watched it, the first one, not this new one, where he's obviously been in a tough accident, he's a doctor, medical doctor, good guy, knows all this stuff, and then he has to go to that place in China, and then they tell him, if you are truly going to heal, you have to let go of everything that you know. Yeah. Everything that you've been told and everything that you think you know is non-existent in this world. Because in this world, you have to let go of all your old beliefs so that you can truly amass the ability that you want to do. So as he's trying to do that whole superpower thing where they create like a nice shape and then you can move to the other place. I probably sound crazy to some of you guys. If you haven't watched the movie, have you guys watched the movie?
Yeah.
Yeah? At least I'm not so crazy. Thank you very much for watching. Yeah, so they then throw him to Mount Everest and then they leave him there, and then now there's no other way. It's either he dies in the cold or he actually amasses it. And for him to do that whole thingy, he eventually had to accept, I don't know nothing, man. And maybe all these things that I've been told are not true. So in order for me to really become Dr. Stevie Strange, as he calls himself, I have to let go of the idea that society has imposed on me. So, breaking away from low self-esteem, are you truly ready to pick up the mirror and see yourself for who you are? And are you then ready that even if anyone would come to you and say, but really, Joe, is this who you are? Would you answer that question with confidence? Or are you just going, all these other things? How am I doing on time?
We're getting it.
We're good.
Yeah,
I think it was 30 minutes or something like that.
Yeah.
We're good.
It's
Okay, cool. Anyway, so the second book, so that's my mom over there. So now, one of the things that are often hard for all of us in life, I think, is now having to, not really to close the chapter, but it's having to understand now that I'm here, there's now a new dimension as well. Because life for me is a constant journey of finding yourself and losing yourself. It's not really that you're gonna, one day, I am who I am, and then full stop. There's no particular thing. Because as you find out who you are, you realize that even answering that question is context-based. Because at the time that I was in, I had to say I was young, black, and powerful. But maybe in a different context, I would have to call myself a different thing. As you guys call yourself, I am whatever that you ... that you guys use for yourself. And so the journey requires that often we revisit all the stories that we've been told. So Lessons from a Domestic Work was also that inspiration now, where you kind of look at now the one individual, my mom at the time, who had kind of did her utmost best to help me follow my dreams. Because really the message of the book was that our parents' job title does not define the dreams that we follow.
Sure.
Because a lot of the story was when, remember those crazy things I had to do? So Lesson from a Domestic Worker was when I had been on national radios, I had been on, I was doing a radio show, he's been my guest. I don't know what this was. But, you know, I had in a way achieved what we would call, this is my success. Because remember, we only aspire for the things that take us from where we are to where we need to be. So at the brink of writing this book, I had been successful, as one may call it, because each and everything that was not possible is now possible. So now the question becomes, who am I now? What is next now? And in the same way, even in your personal journey, you may realize that actually, maybe it started off as body image. Then as you go deeper, you realize, no, maybe the body image is actually a byproduct that my mom maybe was once abused in her life. So maybe there's something hereditary about that I need to question. Or maybe it's actually not my mom, maybe it's actually the society. Because life is full of so many layers that you just keep having to scratch the surface. You find out more, you find out more. Then after this, pretty much the book that why do teenagers find parents boring? Because my struggle, I think, and what I'm trying to do in the world is just trying to help people challenge their narratives, challenge their stories. And a lot of the things that come from this particular book in particular is how, for instance, it's even hard for us at times to find ourselves in a situation where we need to define boundaries, or we need to set boundaries for ourselves. Because remember, if you are growing up in a system that has preconditioned you to become something, when you step out of that, it's easy for people to ostracize you, as what happened with the Matrix, that if you have already found your truth, it's easy for people to say, we are casting you aside. Because the Matrix is also very inspired by Plato's book, The Allegory of the Cave, that as these guys were living in the caves and all of that, all they saw in the world was illusions. Nothing was real. And then when one guy actually stepped outside, he started to see the sun as what the sun is. He started to feel the flowers for what the flowers are, what beauty is and all of that. When he goes back into the cave, there's no such thing, because they believe that these illusions are way better than the real world in itself. So what's going to happen to you, you're going to find yourself now having to establish your independence means that it may look like you are becoming rebellious. It's almost as though you don't want to follow what is being given to you. But unfortunately, if we are not willing to be courageous enough to say, look, this is how things had been done, but this is not how my story ends. And this is not where I want my story to pretty much come to. Phew, I'm tired.
Let's give him a round of applause.
One of the things I think one realizes is that first it's having to accept that. Because when I was speaking at Asanda's event, I was speaking on the subject, I don't know who was there. You look familiar, were you there? No, okay, my bad. Let me just stay focused there.
Focus,
The time will come. If you want to
So I think what I spoke about was that forgiveness is a way towards self-awareness. And I think a lot of times what happens to us is that instead of me having to accept that, look, man, I've got an existential need, as you spoke about it, that for not having a father, I've had to go out in the world and kind of look for external validation, recognition, and all of those things. But what we rather do, killing thing. Sorry for my pen is not really good. But that's what people say. And for me, I question that. I'm like, what do you mean killing thing if only what you know is based on what is been, let's say, preconditioned to you, and it's not really the essence of who you are. So for me, it's having to dig deep into that matter. Why am I behaving this way? Why is it that I feel so much need and so much pressure to always go out there in the world? But what we rather do is we try by all means to deny even the existence of that need that we actually have. Because it is through that awareness, and it's not an easy thing, because a lot of it is going to leave you, for lack of a better word, naked. Because now you've exposed yourself in such a way that all your vulnerabilities, all your weaknesses, and everything that you feared is right there in front of you. And it's not an easy feat, because hence I was making the story of Genesis between Adam and Eve in that talk as well. That part of what I interpreted from a different perspective, philosophically speaking, is that really the eating of the apple has to do with awakeness. That maybe all along you've been walking around in your life and you thought this is how things are to be. Until then comes a moment where your eyes open up. And then suddenly you see the world differently. Suddenly you're like, hi, okay, fine, get low self-esteem, it's not low self-esteem. It's because I actually didn't have a father with identity. But where are truly my roots coming from? So going out to the world, I'm trying to create an identity for myself. I'm trying to create that image for myself. Hence, when people suffer from body image, they're actually not suffering from the comments that are coming from people. They're actually suffering from having to look at themselves in the mirror for just who they are, without the makeup, the things that we put on so that we come across as however way that we come from. So part of finding yourself has to do with stripping off yourself of everything that has been given to you. And it's not an easy process. So hence, when we look at it in that way, indeed in a society where we've got feminism, we've got issues of patriarchy, and a lot of the anger at times that comes where we'd hear females saying, yeah, no, men got everything, so now it's actually right for us to punish them. If you actually dig deep and find that out, is that we've got, I think, in my opinion, a struggle between what is gender and a struggle between what are just the chemical, things that are in our bodies. So in mistaking masculinity, we also mistake it maybe for being a man. We look at feminine and then we quickly associate with being female. But if you dig deep, you actually realize that as a guy, I can actually be more feminine dominant. And if you're a woman, you can actually be masculine dominant. Because it's not the gender that is the problem. It's not the understanding of who in your biological making and all this other stuff that you don't understand. So hence it's possible to find ending where maybe if you stay with your partner, she's the first one to go there.
Yeah?
Because she's more masculine. And then me now, maybe I'm the guy that when she's coming from work, I call her, I'm to cry on. But what we are suffering from is that we haven't been able to distinguish the two. So hence, as a guy, as feminine as I am, and as masculine,
Masculinity.
I would then have an issue with her fixing the door, even though I know that's not my area of strength. So then I'm going to use the fact that indoor, then either smash her or whatever it smash, that's make G.
Hey, chill out. Enda. What I mean?
So then you end up doing that. So I think a lot of the things is that we haven't really had these conversations where we do that. Because for me, and you guys can question me,
Yeah.
if you're a guy and you have to say in daughter, it's a question mark.
Yes, sir.
Because what do you mean win daughter?
You should see.
Hey.
Yo. Hey.
Because initially your actions should already show me that you are.
Ungasho.
But because
Yo.
I am not that thing, I'm going to call
Mm.
and that's
Sure.
at least an attempt to answer your question.
Yo, that's powerful. Yo.
Interesting one. Because the answer is you don't. Because remember, the world in itself and everything that we're looking for, everything that we're searching for, the successes and all of that, we have to come to terms with the fact that it's all an illusion at the end of the day. Because if it wasn't an illusion, then surely someone could have, let's say, figured out what is the meaning of life. Surely someone by now should have figured out what happens to us when we die. Surely someone by now could have told us exactly what is the form and what is the shape of the world. But what we're really looking for, to answer your question, is that in discovering who you are, the thing that you know is the thing that you aren't.
Yeah?
Sure.
What I mean by that is that the way, for instance, we even look at God, we speak to God in the terms of his potential, what he's capable of doing, and what he promises. But we don't associate God with anything that he isn't. So hence when we refer to God, we're referring to a being that is omniscient, omnipresent, and omnipotent.
Yeah.
So for you as an individual, how you come to terms with who you are, you actually then look at the fact that what are the things that I'm not? So it's actually a principle called via negativa, that in actually becoming, we subtract. So when you search for yourself, it's not only the affirmations that you need to do, it's what are the things that don't fit into the narrative of who I want to be. So what you then have to spend more time focusing on is that you then create the red pill and the blue pill. You look at your life from a blue pill perspective as to this is who I'm aspiring to become. And then you say maybe the red pill is everything that I don't want to become. So how you know who you are is that you are more consistent with the idea that you're chasing than let's say the version of you that you don't want. So that would mean obviously you would spend more time and investing more energy in actually saying, maybe let me say I am young, quick and powerful. Maybe let me focus on my dreams. Maybe let me follow this and do all the things that are in line with the narrative of my life and the thing that I'm looking for. So that's really the assignment that you need to do. Because to say, yeah, no, this is how you know you figured it out, it's not there. There's no absolute in the world. But the thing that is there is the consistency of the narrative of ourselves that we want to do. So rather create a construct of different worlds, and then you keep asking yourself, is this decision in line with what I want to do? If it's no, leave it out. Is this what I'm aiming for in line with what? If it's not, cut it out. That's how you become at least the version that you want to be, and not the version that you don't want to become. So there's no absolute way that I've reached it. The only way you do, I'm sorry to say this, is that the only real thing that we know is that we're gonna die. So the truth is you will find out that answer afterwards.